Right. Cool. So how are you guys doing?
Good, sir. Since the
Yeah.
video get bad.
What?
No.
So you don't want to know.
No, I can tell.
We have a
Thomas is
song
really
for
good.
Nadia. Just 9 or 10 minute break, we're gonna be jamming that song.
Okay. So Nadia, you're a Leo. I'm also a Leo. I don't like go read up and hey, you're gonna find the love of your life this week type of stuff.
I'm with
But I do believe in the characteristics. Yeah, they're spot on there. At least for me, I think.
I'm bored.
Yeah, no statement.
Yeah.
Virgo.
I am a Leo.
Does he birthday, sir?
Today.
Scorpios
That's
are
why I was
Actually.
asking. Yeah, for real.
Happy birthday, sir.
No, thank you. For real, for real.
I don't know what that is.
Don't do that. Please don't do that. I tell you what though.
So I'll start screaming now. Don't test us, eh?
No, let's quickly get through this and then
I mean, it's your birthday. We can't overwork you and all that, you know. Would it be good of us?
very considerate, very considerate. I appreciate this. All right, but that's it. Let's get cracking. So I just want to do exercise 2.6 with you guys, which I gave you for homework on Wednesday. And then we'll quickly just go over the slides for learning unit 3. And then that'll be our day for today. Okay? So let's get to it. Okay, so under 2.6, it says, under the required, of course, calculate the number of direct labor hours required for a second order of 32. Okay? Then it goes on to say, using the data provided, estimate the product cost of the initial order of 32. Okay? And for those of you who were with us when we started the learning curve, you remember we said we only move in doubles when looking at the learning curve. Then the last one is using the data provided, estimate the product cost for the second order of 32 units. Okay? So let's see what they are saying in the rest of the question over there. Okay? So up top it says Zena Ltd received an order for 32 units. To date, 16 have been completed, and the first unit required 53 direct labor hours. Approximately 283 direct labor hours have been recorded for the 16 units. The production manager expects a 76% learning effect. In other words, a learning rate. Okay? Then it goes on. Costs are incurred as follows. Okay, you got the type of costs: direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, and fixed overhead. So for direct materials, you got 40 Rand per unit. For direct labor, you got 8 Rand per direct labor hour. And then for variable overhead, you've got 70 cents per direct labor hour. And then finally, for your fixed overhead, you've got 8,000 per 4-week operating period. Okay? Take note of that operating period.
So that's a month.
Basically, yes. There are 13 employees working a 40-hour week. Personal downtime allowance account for, they should have just said allowances. Okay, oh, I read it wrong. Personal downtime allowances account for 30% of the total available time. The company usually quotes a 4-week delivery period for orders. Okay, so basically they're telling us that this order must be completed within 4 weeks. Okay, right. So First things first, they said, calculate the number of direct labor hours required for the second order of 32. Okay, so in other words, we know how many units are we actually producing here?
32 units.
Only? Is it only 32? Why would it be a second 32 then? Can you see they said a second? Calculate the number of direct labor hours required for a second order of 32 units.
Isn't it because the more units we produce, the more
the shorter time it takes to produce
so
them?
the more efficient we become.
Yes.
So the less time we spend.
Hmm.
So now would we be working on the basis?
So you're right actually. You're right. We're only supposed to be doing an order for 32 units because it says received an order for 32 units. Yeah. So I'm the one who's wrong. But here they're saying the first thing they require of us is to calculate the number of direct labor hours required for a second order of 32 units. So they're just making us do the calculation. Okay. So the formula for calculating the number of hours based on the number of units that we're producing is on the board. You can see it over there. This one right here, highlighted in yellow. For those of us who went with us on Wednesday, that might look brand new to you. Okay, so we've got 32, and then we've got, Ashton is looking around. So yeah, in order to calculate the second 32, that means we need to double from the initial 32, isn't right? So what did they tell us? What was the average time for 1 unit?
Directly about.
For 1 unit, for the first unit. In the second sentence, they said the first unit requires 53 direct labor hours. So we have this. It's going to be your 53 hours because that's the average time for the first unit, isn't it? So that we have. The learning rate we also have. They gave us at 76. Okay? And the number of units we have, we want to get 64 because it's the second 32, second order of 32, isn't it? But now we know that we have to raise to the power, isn't it? And we have to raise it in doubles. Remember? Okay? So we know for 2 units, it's going to be raised to the power what? To the power 1. Remember, 2 to the power 1 is 2. And then for 4 units, because that's the next double, isn't it? To the power 2. For 8 units, to the power of 3. For 16, 4. And then for 32, and then obviously for 64, which is what we're looking for, power of 6. Okay, so now we can work out our formula. So this is going to be the power 6, okay, to get the number of hours.
676.
You get for, okay, so for 64 units, maybe let me do that in a different color. For 64 units, we have how many hours you said? And this is direct labor hours. How much? You said 600 and what? Oh, you have to do the calculation, guys. You have to do the calculation. 64 times 53, right? Because that's the average hours for 1 unit. Times your learning rate, this is going to become 0.0 6.76 to the power 6. Yeah, sorry? No. It's the power 6.
How about 653?
653.638 hour.
Make a mistake in round off.
Okay, yes. Yes, excellent. Hours. Okay, but remember what the question said. It says calculate the number of direct labor hours required for a second order of 32. So not a total of 64, but the second order of 32. So how would we get the second order of 32? We'd have to deduct, because this is the total of 64. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we want to know the second 32. So to get the second 32, we'd have to deduct the first 32. Does that make sense? And the reason why is, remember, we know that as we double our production, as you mentioned, we get more and more efficient. All right? So we know that we could have just calculated the first 32, but chances are we can't say the second 32, we're going to make it in the same time as the first 32. Because we know that the second 32, we will be even more efficient. Does that mean? So it'll take us a shorter period of time. Okay? So the only way to find this out is if we deduct from these two times that it takes us. In other words, get the difference for the second 32. Does that make sense? Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Or are we still waking up?
430 hours.
430,000.
No. 430.025
025 hours. Okay, so then
we weren't becoming efficient, it would have taken us 860.
yes, exactly. It would have taken us 860 because we just said, well. Actually, it would just take us because we all for the whole 64 units. Yes, it would have taken us 860, 100%.
As I said, if we weren't becoming efficient.
100%. I thought when you said the 830, you were talking about the second 32. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Okay, so the difference there is 200 and what? Should be 20 something.
223.613.
613 hours. Okay, right. So we have solved the first bit. We've calculated the number of direct labor hours required for the second order of 32 units. Okay, everybody comfortable? We understand everything we've done thus far. Okay.
So I can ask.
Yes. Or we could have done this in a table in a much neater way.
Why do we get the information approximately 238 direct hours have been recorded for 16 units? Why do they give us that?
Sorry?
So they say approximately 238 direct labor hours have been recorded for 16 units.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why they gave us that information because I didn't use it anyway.
Is it maybe to calculate that and then so 16, 32, and then go to the, I don't know.
Yeah, I did not use that information anyway. I think it's one of those where we throw in some additional information.
Confuse the calculation.
To confuse.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Cool. So then from there, the next step, we've got that. We go to point 2, and it says, using the data provided, estimate the product cost for the initial 32 units. The initial 32 units. Okay. So again, we just go back to what we learned in 2A. Okay, we know 32 units, the times your direct Let me put this up higher for you guys so it's clear.
Direct material rates.
Times your direct material rate, which they gave us in the table. They said 40 Rand per unit. Okay. And that gives us what?
1,280. 1,280.
1,280. Okay. And then for the direct labor, which we know is based on direct labor hours, we then know that it's 8 Rand per direct labor hour. We then have to obviously times by the number of direct labor hours to complete your initial 32 units, which we had calculated here. Remember we said, yes, 430. Okay. I think we'll just round that off. Well, let's not do that. Okay. Because we've learned our mistake, Ash, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 430,025. Okay. And when you times those, what do you get?
3,440.
3,440.
40.20
cents. Okay. Then our variable overhead is 70 cents per direct labor hour. So again, we're just going to copy this right here because those are the direct labor hours for our initial 32 and paste. And what do we get there? Should be less than
301.
301.02. Okay.
So
Yes.
why do you say that's the amount of time taken for our initial?
Because we have a. Remember, in our calculation, we had a second 32, but that was just for calculation purposes. The order is only 32 units, but in the question they said estimate the product cost for the initial order of 32 units. So I'm just saying initial so that you guys know that.
Oh, you're doing the second. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Perfect.
Okay. No.
Sorry.
Just so we don't get lost on which 32 we are talking about.
Sure.
Now here we have fixed overhead. Sorry, you want to ask a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. Now we have the fixed. Remember, we are calculating the cost, all right, of this order. Okay? But now within the cost of this order, well, within our costs, should I say, we obviously have our fixed overhead. Okay? How do we calculate our fixed overhead? How do we calculate our fixed overhead? We have to go to our fixed costs, and it says 8,000 per 4-week operating period. Remember, I told you guys, take note of that operating period. Okay? And we also said, within the question, they said it takes us 4 weeks to complete orders. We quote our orders in 4 weeks. So meaning to say that the 8,000 is going to be our cost, isn't it? Okay? But it doesn't mean it's going to be this is our only orders for the week. I mean for that 4 weeks. Just means we quote to say we'll deliver after 4 weeks. But we could be getting other orders from other clients. Does it make sense? But we obviously now want to apportion some of that fixed cost to this order. Does that make sense? Right?
So you put the 8,000 over, you said 430 over 8,000. How are we apportioning?
That's a good question. How are we apportioning it? And that's where I wanted us to go to. So the first thing we need to do is we know, okay, our fixed cost is 8,000. Let me zoom out a little bit. You guys can see clearly? Right. Now, it says 8,000 per what? 4-week operating period, isn't it? And then you remember at the bottom there, after the table, what did they tell us? They started telling us about what? Our employees. How many employees do we have?
30.
And how many hours do they work?
40.
For every week, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. So if we start timesing the hours that they work, are we not getting the operating period? The time for which we are in operation.
160 hours. What's
Mhm.
times 4?
Yes, 40 times 4 times the 13, isn't? So here,
2008.
so we then say operating period. Okay, this is how I think of it. We have 13 employees. All right, then we say times what? 40 hours. Then we say times 4 weeks. And are we done? Is that it?
I think we need to account for the personal drawdown.
Really? Why? Why do we need to account for the personal drawdown or downtime? They're not working. It's not part of the operational period. So you guys are 100% correct. Okay? So we need to account for that too. And they told us that that downtime is what?
30%.
Aha. So what then is our 100%? 0.7 is what?
So
Is the actual working time. Okay? The time that we are actually operating while employees are operating. So what does that give us? Ooh.
1,456.
Aha. So we have 1,436, you said?
56.
56. Any sense there?
No.
Okay.
Cents.
And this is, sorry?
Cents. We're dealing with time, so.
Oh, no, but isn't this, yeah, you're right. It's just time, isn't it?
Mm.
It's just time. Yeah, it's just time. Hours. What is this? Oh, this is the total. Yes, yes. This is the total hours, total operating hours. Thank you very much. Okay. So we can then obviously divide this fixed cost by the number of operating hours so that we can get our fixed overhead rate. Does that make sense?
Per hour.
Per hour, 100%. Okay? So 8,000 divided by the 1,456, what do we get?
5.4945.
49.
8,000 divided by 1. I thought you were going the other way around. I was like, whoa.
Per hour.
It should be like a decimal.
Okay, this is rand per hour. Okay, and then just to reiterate, what are we calculating? We want to apportion our fixed costs to this order. Okay, we want to apportion our fixed costs to this order.
We take the 5.4945 times by the 430.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Okay. Copy and paste. All right. So basically, we're saying for the number of hours that we've spent on this 32 units, we also want to attribute what fixed costs should be allocated to these units. Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Super. So as Ash said, we then times 430 times your 5.4945.
2362.
2362.
62.77.
77.
Yeah.
And if we add those together, are we arriving at that 7,383? Okay, might be a difference on the cents. No, it's the same, exactly the same. Okay, that's great. That is great. Okay, so now we have the cost of our order. Okay, because as you highlighted, we only have 32 according to the order. So we dealt with the second part. We can now move on to the last bit there. Using the data provided, estimate the product cost of the second order of 32. Okay, so there we're doing exactly the same thing. It's obvious, it's only that
we would take the time that it took us to only make the 32, which would be that more efficient time, right?
Yes, 100%. This would change.
223, I think.
That would change because yeah, it's about 200 and something hours. So there you can see, because it's taking us less time to produce the second 32. Okay, so right, I won't make you guys calculate this because, well, I know you guys wouldn't be here if you can't times, but you should then arrive at a 4,454 and 7 cents. Everybody happy? So this is how we're then applying the learning rate. Can you see? The learning rate is helping us to, I should have actually done the calculation here. It's
So
nice and neat.
Become like 3,000 and cheaper.
Yes, to produce more units.
Great.
So you can now see why we have spent time on the learning rate. All right. It's just so we can calculate the time that it will take to complete units, and then we obviously take that time and times it by number of units that we are doing to get our costs and things of that nature. Right. Cool. Everybody happy with that? Cool. So we have finished learning unit.